Well, we're going to start this thing in about 1 minute or so.
Good, we got drinks.
Are you representing the secretary? Okay.
We got tea. Here, we're live. Right. Okay. Yes, you get drinks for these meetings.
That clock is a little slow. So we're gonna start. Jennifer, are you ready? Is everybody ready?
Are we ready?
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay.
We need to start at 3 on the dot.
That clock is slow.
It is.
Well, we better.
Oh, I see. There it is, 3 o'clock. Okay.
It's 3 o'clock.
All right. The TIRZ tax and increment reinvestment zone number 3 meeting for September the 8th, 2021 is hereby called to order. The first item is public comment. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, we have no public comment. Thank you very much. We will go to item 3, minutes. Consideration of and action on the minutes of the December 9th, 2020 meeting. We need a motion to approve.
I move that we approve.
A motion by Willis,
Second.
second by Lane. All in favor, raise your hands, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Election of officers. Jessica, would you like to? Jessica Hubble, there you are. Would you like to walk us through this, please?
So first, I wanted to introduce Jessica. She has been in economic development for over 5 years now on the tourism side. But she is right now serving in the interim public-private partnership manager role. So that's why she has been working very closely with John on all of the agenda items today. But real quick, I was going to step in for the election of officers. Today we've got the consideration and action on election of a vice chair only. Since Mr. Jacobson was appointed as the chair, we have the vice chair position still vacant. And Ms. Rose, you are serving as the secretary and will through the rest of this year. And then at our December meeting, we will then vote on a vice chair and secretary for the year 2022.
So we have 2 new people who have never been on TIRZ number 3. That is board members Lane and Kermali. And we have 1 experienced commission member. Would anybody like to nominate themselves for vice chair? Anybody? Bueller?
I'll do it if no one else
I'll
wants
nominate
it.
Mary Willis for vice chair.
We have a nomination. We
I
have-
second.
Okay, we have a second by our secretary. So all in favor of Mary Willis as vice chair, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
again? Okay, it passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next is orientation. Again, review of and discussion on purpose, roles, responsibilities, and functions of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 3 board of directors. And that will be handled by Jessica Hubble.
Okay. So City Council Resolution 15-24 requires all city boards to receive an annual orientation to introduce board members and to review their responsibilities, as well as to review the zone's previous work and significant agreements. This policy also requires a one-time open meetings training, which can be taken online, and we can provide that link to you. Additionally, the state of Texas requires a conflict of interest and disclosure training, which is handled by the city attorney, which will occur as part of our meeting agenda today. So this zone has a 5-member board, 4 are city appointees, and 1 is a Fort Bend County appointee. In 2009, rules and procedures were established to guide administrative and operational procedures. Some highlights do include the establishing of membership and term lengths, outlining duties and powers, establishing meeting procedures, guidance on conflict of interest, and executive session procedures. The zone encompasses the former Imperial Sugar site and the surrounding areas you can see here on this map. The zone was created in December 2007 through Ordinance 1667, which established a 839 acre zone with a 5-member board that was set to expire in December of 2038. At that time, the city was the only participant, but a board appointee position was reserved for the county pending their participation in the zone in 2008. The city agreed to participate at 50% of property tax increment above the base value and a half cent of the city's 2-cent sales and use revenue tax attributable to the Imperial Tract, with contributions to begin in 2008. In February 2013, the ordinance 1888 was passed to extend the zone expiration to 2042 and to adopt the final project plan. Ordinance 1910 was passed in July 2013 to restore the county's right to appoint a representative to the board. In August 2016, Ordinance 2064 was passed to amend the final project plan to align with the revised development agreement and to correct the sales tax amount and boundary to half cent of the city's 2-cent sales tax generated in the former Imperial Sugar Refinery site. In 2013, Fort Bend County agreed to participate in the zone at 50% of property taxes above their base value of $11.7 million. The county's increment cannot be used for repayment of the city's parking contribution at the ballpark. In the 2007 development agreement outlines a plan for the development of Track 3 and the Imperial Refinery site. This document provides consent to the creation of the Imperial Redevelopment District and outlines other public benefits, including historic preservation, free space to the city for a historic museum and visitor center, and the University Boulevard extension. The development agreement was first amended in 2010. Changes implemented through this amendment include Johnson Development providing 15 acres for the stadium and 6.8 acres for offsite parking to the city free of charge. The city then purchased an additional 5 acres for onsite parking, and the city to provide $7 million to the district for infrastructure and to construct $3 million in parking facilities. A second amendment was passed in 2014 to update the general land plan to replace 127 acres of business park and commercial property to single-family residential. Finally, the third amendment was passed in 2016. This amendment allows the district to issue debt in order to refund developers for public infrastructure. It also established the city will construct University Boulevard extension and receive timely reimbursement from the district for their share of costs. The city will also receive expedited repayment for the ballpark infrastructure and parking. And finally, this amendment also puts into place protections for historic refinery area to achieve the PD vision. In order for the district to meet the obligations established in the third amendment to the development agreement, a tri-party funding agreement between the city, the zone, and the district was approved. The district will use TIRZ funds to implement the zone project plan by financing and constructing the public improvement projects. The district can also use the TIRZ funds to contract with developers and consultants, as well as to issue TIRZ revenue bonds once consent from city council is obtained. To use these funds, though, the district must comply with all terms of the redevelopment agreement, including the reimbursement priority order and TIRZ revenue restrictions. The final project plan outlining the program and priority of public improvements was approved through ordinance number 1888 in 2013. An amendment was made in 2016 so that the project plan would align with the third amendment to the redevelopment plan. The amendment also addressed updated projects, financial sources, and projections of bonded indebtedness by removing the University Boulevard set aside account, removing the previous financing plan for the ballpark infrastructure and parking, and requiring TIRZ revenues meet the new terms of the redevelopment agreement. Here you can see the updated project plan with the total cost estimated just under $200 million. In 2013, the city and the zone approved a support services agreement that allows the city manager to make expenditures in the form of materials, facilities, and support personnel for the zone through the annual budget process. Support personnel and services include general administration, financial services, legal services, and the administration of contracts and projects. For FY21, $2,285 was budgeted for those support services. Each year in September, the board will recommend a budget to city council for approval. For FY21, revenues are budgeted at $1.17 million and expenditures are budgeted at $1.18 million. This means the FY21 budget ending fund balance is at 0. Next, the zone's annual report is a requirement of Chapter 311 of the tax code, and it displays annual revenues, expenditures, debt, captured values, and taxes collected. The board makes the recommendation to city council for approval of the report in December. Upon council's approval, copies are then sent to the state comptroller and all taxing entities within the zone. Finally, the board meets on a quarterly basis, typically at 4 p.m. on the second Wednesday of March, June, September, and December. In March, the board will typically receive their annual orientation and elect officers. In June, the board will receive a development update. The board recommends their annual budget to city council for approval and receives ethics training in September. Finally, the board in December will meet to hear the annual report for the recommendation to city council. Being this is our first time meeting this year, we're having to do a lot of these things today. And this completes your 2021 orientation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, anyone? Jessica?
Yes.
Would you please email me a copy of this presentation? I would love to spend some time with it.
Yeah, we can do that. Of
Me
Thank
too.
you.
Likewise. Same here.
course.
Okay, any other questions for anyone?
No, sir.
Jessica, thank you very much.
You're
Is
welcome.
our attorney here? Oh, there you
I'll
are.
be back then.
So item 6, annual ethics training, receive training related to state laws regulating ethics and reporting responsibilities of city officials. Meredith Reedy, city attorney.
All right, so this will look familiar to you. You get to see this every year sitting on the TIRZ board and on city council. You get the expanded version and maybe even a childhood game to remind you of how much fun ethics are. So as you know, it's an ethics presentation and I'm being an ethical person presenting this ethics presentation. I want you to know that I don't own these images. They are in fact owned by Hasbro. So you're going to ask yourself as a TIRZ board member, what are your obligations under the ethics rules? What are you required to do? And hey, what happens if you don't do them? Well, there's 2 local government code chapters that apply to you, chapter 171 and chapter 176. 171 is your conflicts of interest. And 176 is where you have, under 171, your regulation of conflicts of interest. What do you have to do? You have to file an affidavit with the city secretary's office and abstain from voting if you have a conflict of interest on an item that is before the board. What is a conflict of interest, you say? It's a substantial business in a business entity. And you have a substantial business interest if your spouse, your parent, or your child has what I call the rule of 10. 10% of more of the voting stock, shares, or fair market value. Your annual income is 10% or more from that entity, or if you have $15,000 or more of the fair market value. And substantial interest in real I cannot talk, I'm sorry. Substantial interest in real property, it's with you, your spouse, your parent, or your child own $2,500 or more of a legal interest in the fair market value of that property. So if you have this substantial interest, you get to file a form with the city secretary's office that states what's your nature and extent of your interest in the matter. And once you file that form, we're going to ask that you abstain from voting. And in fact, just so that you don't influence your fellow board members, we're going to ask that you leave the room during that discussion. That way you're not making facial expressions, or anybody in the audience might think that you're actually, playing baseball, making signs and telling people exactly how to vote on an item. And note that the affidavit must be filed prior to any discussion. And if you don't decide to do that, what's going to happen? Class A misdemeanor. You have to spend a little bit of time possibly down at the county, fine not to exceed $4,000. Or if you're having a really bad day in front of the judge, you could actually have both. So we got chapter 176. What is this one? This is where you get to brag to us. It's all about receiving gifts. As I call them, bribes, as the court calls them. So under this chapter, you're required to file a disclosure statement with the city secretary if you have a certain business relationship with someone who's bringing an item before the board, or if you receive a gift or a bribe. And you must do this by 5 p.m. on the 7th business day after you receive the conflict or get the gift. So when do you have to disclose it? When you're related to the person who's in front of your board trying to do business within 2nd degree by blood or 2nd degree by marriage, or if they happen to give you a little bit more than $2,500 annually in your paycheck. And it's a rolling 12 months that you have to do this reporting. And when do you have to tell us about gifts? Well, when the cumulative value of each gift received from the vendor reaches $100. It's not $100 total, it's $100 per vendor, and it is a rolling 12 month. Gifts are lodging, transportation, and entertainment. So if you get a ticket to the baseball playoff game and it's the Astros downtown as opposed to the Astros here at our stadium, then you're going to have to disclose it because I'm pretty sure that ticket exceeds $100. If your person also gives you a beer, go ahead and write that down as well. And if you don't want to tell us or brag about all of your gifts, or as the county judges like to call bribes, it's a Class C misdemeanor, and any action that comes before this board related to that vendor is considered void. Any questions? I went over it very fast, but I know you paid very close attention as you did last year, and you've been all ethical. So any questions?
Questions, anyone?
No.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 7, budget. Consideration of and action on a recommendation to amend tax increment reinvestment zone number 3 fiscal year 2021 budget to projections and to adopt the tax increment reinvestment zone number 3 fiscal year 2022 proposed budget to the mayor and members of city council. And we have Scott Butler, Director of Budget and Strategy.
Hello, thank you. I feel like Jessica did a great job of doing some intro for me, so some of these slides we may just pass right through. So just as an overview, we're going to review the FY21 information from a projection and revenue standpoint. We'll touch on FY22 revenues and proposed budget, and then we'll have some staff recommendations at the end. Here you can see the projections as far as revenue is concerned. Jessica outlined the original budget for FY21 based on projections. Both of those are both the revenues and expenditures are being reduced. But they're being reduced based on the beginning fund balance. And so that's why the ending balance for the fund is still at 0. This is just to show you a breakdown of the revenues between the city and the county, but based on the revenues previously shown. So this is a breakdown of the FY22 incremental tax revenues for both the city and the county. This includes the approved value with exemptions and abatements. The homestead exemption, this is a reminder, the city is at 12%, the county is at 20%. The exemption for over 65 or disabled, the city is at 70,000, the county is at 100,000. And this includes an exemption for the Champion X portion as well. And so anticipated revenue for FY22 is $1.34 million. The proposed budget from an expenditure standpoint, Jessica outlined what those are restricted to. And so we have a small amount budgeted for contractual and support services, and then the assignments to the Imperial Redevelopment District that support the infrastructure that are eligible based on the guidelines of the TIRZ. And so here's a summary for FY22. It includes a humble amount reserved for investment and interest income. And so we're projected to have an ending fund balance of 0 based on the revenues and expenditures. And so the staff recommendation and request is to approve amending the FY21 budget to projections and then approve the FY22 budget to City Council for ultimate approval. Any questions on the budget?
Questions? Anybody? Anybody at home?
Nope.
No questions.
Okay. All right, so we have a requested action. We need a motion, please.
Is the motion to approve the budget, correct?
The motion is to adopt a tax, and amend the 2021 budget to projections and to adopt the 2022 proposed budget. I'm sorry, to adopt the proposed budget and recommend to the mayor and members of city council. A simple so moved.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Kamali. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lane. All in favor, raise your hands and say aye.
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 Okay, any against? None? Okay, 5-0. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Jessica, we have a development update, please.
Yes.
Okay, so of note, the 2016 tri-party agreement established that the zone will provide 98% of revenues to the district for implementation of the project plan. There are biannual payments made in March and September, and then to date, the zone has provided over 3.8 million to the district. Here you'll see again the approved project plan. The total expenditure is just under 200 million. Here's an example of one of the approved public expenditure projects that has been completed, the construction of the South Stadium Drive bridge that's featuring 4 lanes and a bridge over Oyster Creek from the Union Pacific Rail Line that added sidewalks and lighting above and below the trails. Again, it has been completed. The opening of this road does fulfill the long-planned Bernie Road bypass, which provides mobility along that US 98 North corridor. And then roughly in 2020, we saw 7,300 vehicles per day, which was about 3,000 more cars than we saw in 2019. So now let's get into the development update. Okay, assessed values. So in 2021, the city's assessed value of the zone was 364 million, while the county's was 344 million, which is a roughly 13% and 13% increase from the previous year, respectively. In March of 2020, the city executed its option under the lease with IRD to acquire the container warehouse building, which contains the Sugar Land Heritage Museum and Visitor Center, as well as the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center. Almost 10,000 people have visited since opening, with just over 4,000 of those being in 2019. The Visitor Center did close in March 2020 due to COVID-19, but has recently reopened for Friday and Saturdays only. The Sugar Land Heritage Foundation is offering heritage hikes again on the second Saturdays of the month. And they do have the Dia de los Muertos exhibit celebration scheduled for October 25th through November 6th. And in addition, they are continuing their fundraising efforts for future exhibits. As a reminder, the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center opened in May of 2016. From January to December 2019, they saw over 116,000 visitors. The Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center did close the bulk of 2020 because of COVID-19, but has since reopened as of June 2021. Unfortunately, the Imperial Market Historic Redevelopment Project that was previously approved in 2015 is no longer moving forward, but staff continues to work with the property owner and interested parties to secure new developments for that project. In terms of residential, development does continue. The retreat at Imperial, consisting of 60 single-family residential lots east of the Imperial Lofts, were all platted in 2018, which means that all of the single-family residential for that zone has been platted. So to date, there are 573 lots that have been sold to home builders. 562 of the total lots have been sold to home developers. 541 either have homes constructed or under construction, and then 510 of those homes are occupied. In regards to commercial property, some commercial property and parcels around the stadium have been sold. We have not seen permits come through yet, but we do feel that the AAA affiliation will further entice those developers and garner that interest. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Constellation Field. As we all know, our minor league baseball stadium that opened April 2012 with a 7,500 person seating capacity. In 2019, the stadium saw over 530,000 visitors, but obviously in 2021, there was a shift due to COVID and safety restrictions that were in place. So the Skeeters got really creative and they put together a 4-team Constellation Energy League, which brought in about 43,000 visitors. And while the attendance wasn't what we saw in 2019, it still brought great visibility to the stadium and to Sugar Land. And for a time, it was the only live sport going on within North America. So it was a great addition in that year. And then again, it also brought exposure, to the team, to the Skeeters, as we move forward to becoming the Houston Astros AAA affiliate, which most of us here know has been the long time vision and dream for that stadium that has now finally become a reality. And so they have seen many big leaguers come through this season. Here's just to name a few. They've seen Lance McCullers, Alex Bregman. Them being there did shoot ticket sales up, which is great. And then we also know that it was felt citywide between our hoteliers, our retailers, our tenants. So it's definitely what we want to see, and we're looking forward to seeing more of that in the future. And with that, that completes your development update. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, anyone? Anybody in the ether want to ask a question? No?
Is this
Nope.
Yes?
presentation, can we get a link to it as well?
It's not linked, but we can send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind sending it to all of us, that'd be
Yeah.
great. And I wouldn't mind.
That would be great.
Copy of your presentation. Scott.
Yeah, I'm just, the point of clarification, do they go online with the agenda after the meeting? Okay, so they'll be available.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
anything else?
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you, everyone from staff and everyone who are board members. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All
Second,
right, we are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
thank you.
Feel
Thank
free-
you, everyone.